Today's podcast is brought to you by Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. Accidents happen. Without the right coverage from the right insurance company, damage to your automobile can be a real financial hit. That's why Kentuckians appreciate the competitive rates and personal service they get from Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. When the unexpected happens, count on us to help you get back on the road. To request a free quote, find your local KFB insurance agent at mykfbagent.com. Kentucky Farm Bureau, big on commitment. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going well. You'll hear later in the podcast, I'm not actually a part of this. I get replaced by Thornberry. Tim Thornberry sits in. I had to take my dog to the vet.
Yeah. We'd like to first disclaimer before we get into our topic of the day. Is your dog okay?
Dog's totally fine. Dog has weird knees, so she's fine. Everything worked out. It's one of those things, she's limping for 3 days. We finally get her to the vet. She's jumping all over it's like there's nothing wrong with her.
It's like a kid that's chucking at home, and then you get him to the doctor, and they're like giggling. And you're like, I swear this kid was sick this morning.
I was like the mechanic. You're hearing that rattle underneath the car. You get the mechanic, no rattle. You know, so it's one of those things. But yeah, she's fine. She has weird knees. She's had it since she was a little pup. So it just turned out being that. It seemed like it was something different, but it turned out just being that. So that's good. So yeah. So we had to go to the vet. This was obviously we're recording this open after that. So, but everything is fine.
It's so good to hear.
Yeah. So I'm sure Tim does great. So
he did a great job. Yep. He even came up to my office after to reconfirm that he did a good job.
Tim also not great knees.
No, on the subject of knees, not the best ones.
Not the best.
That's
knees.
why we pulled him in. So kind of in honor of your pup.
Yeah. Just bring him in. Not great knees. But a great interviewer. So
it was comical, and this is kind of what got me to our subject today. Our guest today, Scott Porter, has more farm dog, outdoor, good, working dog. So when you were explaining to him, you quickly gave the kind of the overview very quickly of the breed of your dog and the functionality of your dog to make sure he understood you were not taking a border collie in or. Working dog. This is a little different situation in a neighborhood with your kind of dog.
There's zero chance my dog would get anywhere near a cow. I can tell you that much. She is a air-conditioned home dog. She has she doesn't like grass. Okay, so let's get honest. She doesn't really like going on walks. She's the laziest dog I've ever had. That's the biggest battle is getting her moving. But we go.
If I had bad knees, sometimes we have trouble getting Tim moving. You know?
We got to take Tim for a walk once a day.
And then his knees feel better. He's jumping by the time he gets to the doctor too.
He's great. He's doing really good.
But your dog is chosen because you have allergies.
So I always laugh about where I ended up in my careers working. And going to farms with every allergy that possibly can exist on a farm. I'm allergic to everything. So we have one of these genetically modified dogs.
Nobody seems to care about GMOs when it's a dog.
GMO dog, where she has no allergies. She's wonderful. She's the sweetest dog ever. She's my favorite dog. But yeah, she is no farm dog. Let's just be honest there.
Yeah, we were laughing and telling the stories right before we started recording. The difference in when a farm dog gets taken to the vet versus a in-town dog, a little different. The conversations you have with your vet, a little different. So it's comical to me in a good way. Your dog is in your house. It needs to be healthy. You're seeing it all the time. There's a chance if we missed a wormer on our farm dog, sometimes we're like, safeguard feed wormer. If I gave 1/8 of a teaspoon and I give a calf a cup, surely that'll clean it out, right? That'll get us by. It's just a very different vibe. But it does. How close is your vet? Like, you have a vet?
It's just right down the street.
See, that's the difference too. That's so nice.
With this particular one, I was kind of like, she'll shake it off. Yeah, I'm a little more that than my wife, I would say. She doesn't listen, so we'll be fine. But I'm a little more like, just give it another day. They're like, it'll be fine. I'm even that with our kids, like when they have a little sniffle and they're just gonna tell us they got a sinus infection. Like, what? I'm not trying to be a doctor or anything, but so yeah, I'm a little bit more of that. But yeah, this has been a reoccurring thing with my little puppy. my little dog. But yeah, they're right down the street. They're man, the people that are probably there once a week for their perfect little puppy. We don't do that, but yeah, it's a very different thing. I'm sure. Yeah, she's right there. You see her have her problems or not, but she's got it made. I tell you, this dog, if she got stuck outside, she'd be, I don't know how long she'd survive. Where them farm dogs can figure it out for weeks. Probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think
it is funny, just the timing of how this all worked out. So my brother shows pigs, and his girlfriend works at a vet clinic, and there's a surgeon there. He needed a surgery on this pig. I'm not going to go into detail of what the surgery is. Pig's fine. Everything went great.
Yeah.
But this literally happened like yesterday. And the difference in like when you take a dog in to get checked or to gas them to make sure they're under before you do a surgery or really work on them versus a pig, caught her, give him a shot. He was kind of wiggling around a little bit, and they're like, as long as he doesn't fight, we'll just pick him up and carry him in. Dad said there were 2 construction workers that were doing an expansion on the building, and one of these, my brother's girlfriend, and she's not big. I mean, she's a small girl, but she picks up 60-pound hogs, hauling it in. One of those guys went, dang.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a rural kind of farm vibe is just so different than, you getting to walk your own dog in.
Oh, yeah.
And like telling it, everything's going to be okay.
They take it back, and you're just like, oh, God, I hope everything's going to be all right.
I'll be right here when you come out. And my dad was like, just put it in the trailer when you're done. We'll just holler over. Just such a different vibe. Not that we don't love this pig. Great pig.
Great pig.
Honestly, if we weren't loving this pig, probably wouldn't have taken him for the surgery. So, I mean, we love the pig, but it's just very comical to me, the difference. But we are all glad pig is okay, dog is okay.
Yeah, old Dolly. We call her. Her name's Dolly.
Little Dolly.
She's fine. She's jumping all over the house now and back to
making you
her
regret
her lazy self.
Making you regret the bill.
Yeah. That's a little bit of it. It's like just give it a day. That's what really came out of this. Is like this. They were like, this is probably gonna happen more often. So, give it a day. Give it a day. Yeah.
It's like the dog version of like when you tell your kids to shake it off? My mom would always be like, just shake it off.
That's what I was kind of like, let's give it a second. And then, I like took off and went all the way there, and they're like, yeah, she's fine. And I'm like, that's what I kind of thought was going to happen.
Thank you for confirming.
I'm no vet, but
that's a marriage saver.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Having someone smarter than you in that realm of work agree with you instead of you just being like, I told you she'd be fine.
I didn't say any of that. I made sure of that. I did not go home and be like, well, I told you we didn't need to do all this, because that wouldn't have ended. So, but yeah, Dolly's good. And yeah, I missed a great interview, it sounds like.
Yeah, Scott's the best. And if you have never heard his story, we are using the heck out of him right now because he's our current reigning Farmer of the Year.
Yeah.
So we have a video of him from last year. We stuck him on RFD, and the same day he was here, we said, hey, man, you want to come over here and tell us your story? And we won't even stick a light in your face. We'll just talk in a microphone. And he did wonderful.
Yeah, he is not... he's a great guy. He is not live on national television guy, so he was a little nervous there. But I told him, podcasts way easier. We're just hanging out.
Really, so, we just told him that mean mug Matt Hilton's leaving, so you don't even have to look at him.
That rough character's
very
out
intimidating.
The door and Timmy's in. So yeah. So Tim sits in for me. Again, he's our go-to backup quarterback.
Squad came in, got
it done. So I think everybody's going to really like this one.
All right, let's get you to Scott. Without further ado, I'm Renee Carrico.
And I'm Matt Hilton.
Let's get rural.
Seat here. No, he's in the main seat.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
We're nothing but fillers.
She's the cattle person, so I'm just here to listen.
Sure. That's what everyone wants in a co-host. Please say nothing. Yeah. No, we really pushed through the ringer today, didn't we?
Well, just like I said, it's all kind of new experiences for me. So it's like this headphones and mic. It was Jeff Nelly come down to the state convention. I never done this before in my life, so sitting in front of the camera today was just a different feeling too. But knew I could do it. Just gonna sit down and do it, and try to pay attention to what they ask and go from there. So yeah.
Well, we've got Scott Porter with us today from Mason County, and you are the reigning Farmer of the Year. So thank you so much for making the drive over.
Oh, very glad to be here. Very glad to get quite honored by the award, and kind of a part of my lifetime's work so far. So it's been a great experience, and nice to drive to Louisville today and take you in the studio and have these experiences, because they're all new to me, and it's quite enjoyable. I appreciate the good words and the good comments. It's all very appreciated by my family and myself. So
Great. Well, people are hearing my voice now, and they're expecting Matt Hilton. Well, he's not here right now, so I get to sit in today.
Got him.
So thanks for having me as well.
Yeah. So, Scott, let's kick it off. Why don't you give us kind of an overview of, I already said where you're from, but maybe what you guys farm right there at home.
yeah, we're right there in the Mason County. I say the Mason-Fleming County line, because literally our farm lies in both counties. We have a Maysville address. We've always kind of identified as Mason County people. My wife Marianne and I, we're 26 years married now, and she came to Louisville with me and headed off down the street and dropped me off, so she could do a little out of her normal wheelhouse too, get us take in some things she does every day too, and shop a little bit, of course. So, but four children, been blessed. God's been good to us. We've got 4 healthy kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. Only have 1 left in high school. Asa, our youngest, is a junior in high school at St. Patrick's in Maysville, the Catholic school. We're a Catholic family, and our oldest daughter, Anna, is she's in medical or pharmacy school at UK now. She's in her 2nd year of pharmacy school. And Samuel, the oldest son, just turned 22, and is kind of one of those born and bred and died in the wool of a cattle producer. That's all he really wants to do too, and we're working together. He helps us. Was kind of employed through our farm. As a employee, so to speak, but yet getting the chance to help him start his own cattle business, his own achievements, so to speak, and scares me to death because we're in a record high cattle prices, and we're in different spots there. I'm kind of 30 years in the business and kind of getting to enjoy it. He's got to figure out how to buy something and make some money on it, and so we're trying to be very careful, going very easy there, but it's good. We're enjoying it. And then our youngest daughter, Maggie, she's at school at Eastern Kentucky University in her 2nd year, and heading down that business finance type route. So we'll proud of all 4. I'm just blessed with 4 kids, and if we kind of got into the farming business, we're full-time cattle people. The cattle business has always just been my interest, my focus. Just wanted to experience it all, so to speak, and been very lucky over time to kind of get to do that. I've kind of operated in, if you break the cattle business, the cattle industry down, it's kind of as a producer, the production side of it, there's really kind of 3 segments to it, and Kentucky is a cow-calf state. Majority of what goes on in Kentucky is just the cow-calf operations, and they vary in all sizes. We also haven't, I've seen this grow in, from my experiences, my being involved in the cattle business, the amount of backgrounding that goes on in the state of Kentucky, the people that buy somebody else's calves, if they're not already vaccinating, kind of on a good health program, that's what they do as backgrounders, is begin to buy those what we call high-risk calves and begin the vaccination process, the getting those calves healthy, getting them kind of prepped, go back out on like summer grass. The grass is coming on this time of the year, and all the excitement, all the buzz is those stocker cattle. Those cattle's going back for the grazing season. Those guys are ready to buy cattle. Winter's kind of getting behind us, and they turn those lighter weight cattle into those good big fancy yearling cattle that come off at, we like to say here in our part of the state, that bluegrass pasture. They come off all that good Kentucky grass. And then they head on down the road for the next part of it, which is the finishing phase of it. It's kind of the shortest time frame of it all. Is a lot of times it seems like people dwell on the grain finishing, the finishing cattle, and they shouldn't spend their life in a feedlot, so to speak. But actually, that stay is very brief, and it's very deliberate. It's very targeted, and the objective there is to add value to that calf and the quality of what we're producing. And those western feedlots, and northern feedlots, they serve that purpose very well. And I've kind of, like I said, I've been I spent a lot of time doing all three. I've even custom grew other people's cattle. Had about a 5-year deal where I custom grew dairy heifers from a lightweight, clear back to within 30 days of calving, managed the growth, the development of it, the breeding, everything of that deal. And, I had a really interesting experience in doing that. It wasn't quite what I thought I was getting into when I did it, and kind of shifted gears 2 or 3 ways. And but by the end, it worked very, very well. The biggest reason I stopped doing that was the main people I had dealt with, which was it kind of became all foreigners, to be honest. The ownership of those dairies kept changing. It seemed like every time I'd make a deal, it shifted again. And so after about 5 years, there was just a good point to exit there. And I thought I was getting into it to manage risk and make life just a little bit simpler. Didn't exactly work that way. It was a good experience, but it took a lot more effort and a little bit more stress to it than I was bargaining for when I started. So like I said, I've just got to experience it all in all those segments and really enjoyed them all, and have kind of boiled it down today to, I guess you'd say, where my heart and my mind is. I really enjoy the cow-calf side of it. Really went hard into stockers and feeding cattle for years just to stretch our capabilities as far as we could, because I had debt. I had to pay for the land I had and the things I wanted to do, and just could not do it. The only way to turn that money and make money was, to some extent, take risk, but calculate risk. I still tried to be very careful. Didn't really do anything unless I could make it make sense. And that sounds kind of oversimplified, maybe, to say it that way, but it was the truth. I knew when to kind of step on the gas and when to back off a little bit. Just like I said earlier in this conversation, my son's in that spot now where he wants to so bad, and you can just. But it's a dangerous time in a lot of ways. It's if you're a producer producing those calves from your cows, that's the segment that's seeing the glory right now. But if you're the backgrounder to buy those calves, you've got to manage high risk there, and or if you're the cattle feeder trying to buy cattle to go to a feedlot with, it's a very, very thin margin, almost negative margins to operate in those 2 segments right now. So, but that always shifts around, that moves around. So it's just kind of the nature of the business, So it's just lessons learned are valuable on down the road. It's great to share them with other people, and kind of like I said, maybe step on the gas or pump the brake when necessary. Just be patient. It's a very patient business too, to see the opportunities and just follow what the opportunity is a little bit.
I talked to a producer the other day, and he described his operation he said, we're a strictly cattle operation, but we're a diverse cattle operation. So they were doing a lot of different things, including the custom breeding and things like that. So we see that more and more, I think, in the cattle industry, don't we, Scott? That you've got to sort of spread that out a little bit. You've done a little bit of all three, and sometimes that's what it takes, and sometimes it takes moving from one sector to the next to the next over a long period of time. Has that been your sort of been the way it is on your farm?
It has. It's there's just I've seen those experiences firsthand. There was a time I probably topped out when I, had the extra help, could hire the help to do it, 11 to 1,200 cows. I might have had 1,500 feeders turned out too, or stockers running on pasture, and could have had 1,000 to 1,500 in the feedlot at the same time. And I could see it not be very good to you in one segment, but the good was coming in the other. But over time, part of that process that was education, sometimes you could say it's not free, it is expensive. So wherever you get your education, it's not always cheap, but it really did help me to see and understand. It's something I wrote about in the application for this award, with Farm Bureau, was finding the value of animals, the true value of them, and sort of learning how to try to capture that. When you started with some of your own calves you'd produced yourself, kind of took them on through that weaning process, backgrounding them, growing them on out, and then you ultimately saw those cattle finished. And the majority of the times, the last half of the 20 years I spent feeding cattle and finishing them, I did sell them pretty much based on carcass merit. I was paid for the value of the cattle. So you really learn to tie those that education, seeing where the value comes from, really starts to tie back into what you do to the next calf crop, the next year, and where you really see value yourself. I told Renee before this, like we talked about this a little bit before, too. Even tried to a young farmer group was. I even see that as diversification a little bit when you can understand the different segments. Maybe you're operating in one or two or three of them, but it kind of spreads you out a little bit from a risk standpoint, an opportunity standpoint, to get to experience all that. And one thing I really came to believe, I always think, do I do a good job explaining it or not, is somewhat even being diversified in a certain commodity, which for me is the beef or the cattle production. I guess I should really call it cattle production as a producer. But I learned this a whole lot, especially finishing and marketing finished cattle. It's because where I saw it so much. You get so much detailed information back in front of you from a commercial feedlot. Everything they do is very much documented. All the feed's weighed and measured. I mean, it's got a delivery time. The cattle was fed every day on it. Before you even start to get to gain and conversions and the finished product and the value of it, you see so much information from the physical growing side of it, but you also get a lot of financial information back. They keep very good records, and they share back with a customer, even just to validate what you're paying them to do. But you could. So as part of that, you even learn to see the different cycles within the industry, the way things cycle around throughout the calendar year. A lot of them are pretty seasonal and pretty predictable as far as your calf crop you produce. And when is an ideal time to sell it? What's the ideal condition for it to be in to kind of take advantage of the market that presents itself just about every year? Like right now, it's that grass fever time. Those stocker grass weight cattle, weaned cattle is in such high demand. It can be a little different on the yearling feeder cattle side of it. Those bigger weight cattle, there's usually certain cyclical seasonal times to get them placed on feed. And a lot of times because that feeds back out into the finished side, when is the opportune time, the highs and the lows each year to have cattle finished, going on to the feedlot or onto the packer, and then those seasonal price fluctuations. And supply and demand still drives a lot of them pretty predictably in seasonal patterns, So it really pays to learn. If you start to learn in one segment and you kind of spill over into another, maybe all three of them, it changes the way you think about it, or it did for me. It really changed the way you think about things a lot and how you target and how you market. And even where I've stopped sending cattle to the feedlot and retaining ownership through this. We've been in about a 5-year bull market in the cattle industry here. Really, kind of seen that low in 2020 with COVID pandemic, I guess you would say, and it really started to build after that. And I'm actually amazed. We've been selling some of those spring stockers ourselves. The last 30, 40 days here, and I thought they were high a year ago. I'm just blown away with what we're doing right now. Did not expect it at all. It's kind of like Christmas is coming again, So we're enjoying it from the producer side right now.
Oh, absolutely.
And the cow-calf guy deserves it every so often. They get, I speak what I think a lot of times, and if there's one segment sometimes that gets really, really drug under the truck, for miles and miles down the road, it's the poor cow-calf guy, because the packing industry can certainly have their way with the market and kind of have too much influence at times, I think. And I always say the guys in the middle, the backgrounders, I've been there too, but they're really buying cattle queued off what they see as a margin and playing the game, so to speak. They can look ahead, whether they use futures or a production type of a contract to kind of manage their thoughts. But the cow-calf guy's just at the mercy of the market the day he takes them. And a lot of times the cattle feeder, that gets to be pretty complicated, but it's a take it or leave it kind of price for them too. And a lot of them manage for that. They know that. They're very experienced and somewhat professional in what they do there. But poor cow-calf guy, it's just a take it or leave it market most of the time, and not much room to do more than just act like you liked it whether you did or didn't. So.
Well, Scott, I think, I could dive into cattle all day, and I'm sure we're going to get back to that. But I do want to give a second for people to understand when you hear the age of your kids and you see you and Marianne, you don't look the typical age of someone who's done as much as you've done in your farming operation. And so, or the experiences from a risk perspective. And I ask you to share this because I know you've done it before. What you saw as a kid, and then what you and your brother and your family kind of went through, and then kind of where you and Marianne started, I think is an incredible story to understand maybe why such a thought on risk and such a yearning to learn and understand kind of comes from. So if you don't care, share that part of the story with them because your upbringing really, it makes a lot of what you just said make a lot of sense.
Right. And when we back up and kind of, to my childhood, my growing up, part of the land I owned, I grew up on basically a 400-acre farm. My parents' farm, just a little over 400 acres. Tobacco was the focus of it. That part of the country, just burley tobacco. It was the cash crop. It even compared to cattle, it's such a short time frame to produce that crop of tobacco and get paid for it versus what it takes to produce a calf. And that's whether you sell it as a calf or you go on clear to the end with it, and market as a finished animal. But growing up, I was born in '73. You kind of went through parts of the '70s. I think a lot of people reflect back, of that age, and there was a good spell in the '70s. Kind of got to changing late. I always say I'm kind of a kid of the farm crisis, and it was at my house. And it was at a lot of other places. And then you rolled into the early '80s, and even as a kid, in '83, I was 10 years old, but I still remember the drought of '83. We really had nothing. The tobacco crop really was worth cutting, going to the barn. And I'm a 10-year-old kid. I'm 52 years old now, but I still remember it. Mm-hmm. It just was a very, very stressful time, and it was it was a fight as it was a fight for my family then. My parents, I guess I should say, to just make being a farmer pay. It just was they started, with borrowed for what they had to get started, and had that loan, that mortgage, that interest to pay. Just never really could whip it and tackle it. Conquer it, I guess is the best way to say it. Mm-hmm. Did survive for a long time. Kind of got through the '80s. It got better, and it did get a little bit better, but just chronic debt was just never could conquer, never could move on. So we grew up pretty lean, just kind of running on nothing all the time. And even when I was getting that age, through high school, and that's all I really wanted to do was farm, particularly raise cattle. Kind of that wish in one hand, spit in another at that point in life. I want to, but I don't know how to do it. So just really had a lot to try to learn. As I'm talking about the early '80s, but by about 2000, I think it was actually I was married in 1999. That's when Mary and I got married. So she actually was along for this ride for we didn't date much over a year before we got married, or really not a full year, but and I always kind of joked with her. I said, because I think I was very honest about what I was looking to do, what I wanted to do. And she taught school. She was an elementary school teacher in Brown County, Ohio, right along the Ohio River in southern Ohio. And we kind of met through a friend, but I always kind of joked. I said, if you're going to run now, 'Cause I don't know where this road's going to lead, but I said, it's pretty rough right now. At that point, I was already starting to, do things on my own, and I'm in my early 20s at this point. But eventually, it was early 2000. The family farm was foreclosed on and sold. The foreclosure came a little bit earlier, but it takes a while for that stuff to work through, But it was in some ways I knew it was coming. Didn't want it to, myself. We've got an older sister. I'm the oldest of three boys. There was 4 kids in my family. My other 2 brothers are both younger than me. And at that point in life, we were all starting to do our own things, whether it was, farming some or working public work to take care of ourselves and start to make some of our own money, But we were all still committed to helping Dad and Mom, because it was our home. It was where we grew up. All our memories were there. Just always thought we'd get it figured out and do better one of these days with it, But it didn't. It finally was. Their home was foreclosed on. They divorced after 30 years of marriage. just a lot of factors kind of at work, to be honest. So it was tough. It was humbling. It was embarrassing. It was a low point in life. And I remember that right in the driveway, actually my house is my childhood home. Marianne and I built onto it, made it a little bigger, and done more with it, to raise our family in. But it's the same yard. That poplar tree in the front yard's 10 times bigger than it was when I was a kid. But it's just stayed there and grown, and I'm really glad to get to raise my family there and make memories there. But that farm was sold out. As hard as that was, to do, so to speak, there's a part of me knew it was coming, and probably it was time, because I was 25 years old, if I remember right then, when it was just really happening there, and just had been married myself, and just kind of knew it was time. I think my mother even knew it was just time. She was very committed to her kids and the farm, and it was hard. I mean, it was hard, but it was just time, so to speak. But on the other hand, and I told my brothers this kind of after we'd wrapped up the sale that day and the auctioneer had left. I said, in some ways we're, blessing, curse. It's over with now. It's made us tough. It's made us. My brothers are hard workers too. I said it's made us all tough. Made us all know we got to take control and make things happen ourselves. And we've all done well in that regard. And But as time had it, as luck had it, I'd already bought a little bit of land around, basically from just a good neighbor that I'd grown up around that sold me the first farm I ever owned on a land contract. And I think he just was just a good guy, wanted to sell that farm. He had a good bit of land around, a very, very good, much a mentor, a good person too, and he literally just pulled off the road one day, and I'd helped him a little bit off and on through life and knew him well, helped him catch cows and do a little bit of odd jobs here and there. And he pulls in and says, "Let me sell you a farm," I kind of laughed. I said, "Well, I'd love to buy one, but I have no money for a down payment." He said, "You don't need none." So that was the start of getting to actually own something. I had some leased land at that point and was starting to grow it. But there's nothing like being able to kind of start to put your feet on something you own. It's very empowering. Was actually scared to death to ever tell him yes. I fumbled around a while and couldn't quite give him an answer. And till just one day I realized I don't have anything to lose, I can try it and go from there. And that's kind of what we did. We took hold and grew and just have kind of built and grown it since then to we're up to 1,200 acres we own now, and have very, very little debt on it. Wouldn't have any debt sitting here today, but last September I bought another farm from another neighbor retiring that had kind of waited. I think I knew before if he ever sold it, I'd be interested. And 87 years old, he got to that point and made contact. We made a deal on it and closed out by about the 1st of October last year, and set the farm up. I paid some money down and set up 3 payments to have it paid for. So it's just amazing, when you can turn your fortune around and begin to think about things a little bit different, make different decisions, operate in a different way. Just the difference that makes. I try to keep life and thoughts pretty simple, and if you make good decisions, learn to make good decisions, and continue to do that, life's pretty simple in that regard. But, we kind of grew up in that situation where we made a lot of bad decisions, just kind of had to keep making the best of it we could, but could never quite get on the good side of things. And when you learn to operate in a different way and really realize a farm is a business, we all love it, our heart's there, and we're super attached to it. But it's got to make money to survive, let alone grow. You just have to learn how to that's kind of how I wound up in those different cattle segments too. Mm-hmm. I was super interested, wanted to learn, but just it also gave me opportunities to manage a little beyond just what I could do physically through the labor. By going into some of those custom grazing, custom feeding type of deals where somebody else had something to offer if I could just manage it, so to speak, So it's I don't know if I'm hitting the question just exactly like you wondered, Renee, but my mind just goes into all these different directions and things. But been a very humbling experience. And very, I'm still humbled by the experiences I had. In some ways, that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger comes to mind. It was a hard thing to go through at the time, but yet we learned a lot. I think myself, my brothers did, and we had to give us a lot of direction to maybe choose and do our lives a little different, and pick a little bit different, and you know, God willing, we'll get there someday. So.
Well, I like the story, not because it was joyful. I don't mean it that way, but it's a tough story. Yeah. But I would have never guessed, from a total outside perspective, I'm obviously not from your end of the state. And so when I met people telling me before I got to your farm for that first visit, or that you were sending an application in, there was no awkwardness. It was just pure respect and admiration for what you guys do. And so I think it is the coolest, most full circle moment is I don't think you're a prideful person. You guys don't strike me that way at all. But to be at that kind of a low, to feel like your family name is probably in a spot that people might think lesser of because the situation you're in. Right. And for you and your family to have kind of built back up just out of good, honest work and learning and working your tail off, I just think it's a cool testament to help people understand why a guy that is your age is already the farmer of the year. I mean, the place you came from got you there, and the risk you have to understand for all the different segments. And we can dive into that as much as we want, but for a cow-calf man, we finally have risk protection now. But there's a lot of people that say, well, if I don't have the numbers, I don't have anything to work with. And then guys that do retain ownership say, well, I have this, but I got to have the right guy out there that I trust. And there's just so many pieces to learn and the difference in how you handle cattle. Are you going all the way to that cut sheet and seeing what the cattle did grade? Right. Or are you just doing straight pounds? Or are you just doing straight? I mean, you had to learn so many segments. And I think a lot of that story shows people probably why you were so interested and ready to do it. Because if you were going to jump into something, by gosh, you were not going to, as much as your control, you weren't going to get under it. You know what I mean? You were going to have your head on top of it. So I think it's a phenomenal story. And I'm biased. I've gotten to hear it probably 2 years in a row because we got to judge you in Farmer of the Year. But I always want to make sure. And it's it takes a lot to want to share something like that. So I think it's very interesting you're willing. So
even the first year we did the written application, and I kind of started looking at it, and I was a little reluctant. For one thing, I'm not a victim. I don't portray myself as a victim. I didn't want to come across even in that way. I didn't want to be prideful, and I didn't want to be a victim either. You know, I'm pretty much you pull your boots on and get to work, and you know, if it's easy, great, and if it's not, work harder. You know, and if it didn't work, figure it out. You know, and just keep at it. But yet everything is super money intense in the farming industry too. So you have to be very careful. You know, number one, to do some of that stuff, you have to be able to finance it. And that's a slow road to build a balance sheet to where as you want to take a little risk or try something, and a lot of things you just have to weigh the risk out too, to go those directions. Like I said, it's absolutely be careful. There's other times I've wanted to do something so bad, I knew it was a good deal. I knew it was smart, and especially, you know, years ago, maybe the bank, farm credit be a little, you know, slow down. but that's not bad advice either, because a guy can get over his head if he's not careful. And so, you know, and even, you know, with responsible lenders, you know, I'll say this while I'm thinking of it, but, you know, Farm Credit had a mission statement there at some point in my association with them that their goal, their mission was to be the provider of, you know, responsible or constructive credit. And that always stuck in my mind, because that's what I wanted to be on the other side, was a constructive borrower. You know, I wanted to do it in the right way, and just, you know, number one, I knew I needed to pay the loan back and be responsible for it. And a lot of times, you know, financing something like this, you can't do it out of your back pocket. You have to have a good lender. And Lord knows you need good advice and good responsible people providing that to you too. And even like I mentioned, that dairy heifer deal, that custom growing deal, that was, like I said, it was a bit more to it than originally thought. But I actually leaned on my lender a lot to help me be careful. You know, we wrote a contract, we notarized a contract that I was comfortable with, that the producer on the other end was comfortable with, their financer was comfortable with. And in the end, like, that was about a 5-year stint, but I did wind up having to use the attorney that helped to author that contract to sue a bank to make me writing it, you know. Things got wonky, got out of hand. I remember, you know, one of those men I was talking about, mentors there before, had a good friend, a good neighbor, kind of heard about it, and he was worried about me, and kind of just out of concern was asking me about it, and he said, and part of that story too, he was wanting to lease me his farm, and I was putting him off a little bit. I said, I've got to get through this. I said, I need to get paid what I'm owed. I think I will, but it's taking a little extra effort. And he said, how bad will it hurt you? He said, will it break you? And I said, no, but it will bend me. So I said, just give me a little time. I said, I'm not sure what a little time means in something like this, but I said, give me a little time. I said, let's get it figured out. But that again, those steps to be careful. We didn't just do it. A lot of things in the cattle business, we're pretty good on a handshake. People are pretty honest, well-intentioned, but this was a little bit more complicated than that. Was advised by a lender, let's get some of this stuff in writing, So we made those extra efforts, those extra steps, and in the end, that's what made that simple, when that agreement, that notarized legal agreement got in the right hands. I got a phone call and said, we need to square this with you, and it was smooth to square out from that point. And then the conversation turned a little bit to we're gonna change things how we operate in the future. That the other lender was a little bit reluctant to continue. I said, as long as I know where I'm at, I'm good. So we were good from that day forward. And but eventually the ownership changed, and the contract didn't mean anything at the point when the ownership of the operation changed. But it was very valuable to take the time to think ahead and make a contract and put everything down in writing. And that was a whole lot insisted upon and advised by my lender to make sure I knew what I was getting into, and that if things got a little bit sideways, we had something to fall back on. Because we always mean for things to operate in a good way and smooth, but sometimes intentions and reality are two different things.
Absolutely. And, sometimes it's hard to look at those tough times as a blessing, but often down the road somewhere, you'll remember those and you'll learn from them. And farming's a whole lot like that.
Yes.
We're in the horse business, and believe me, we know what it's like. I'm sure all those things, you can look back now and say, while it was tough, it was a learning opportunity. And I would assume that you're probably teaching your children the same thing, aren't you?
Yes, we're just conservative people by nature too, and our kids follow that same way, and they've. I've been a little surprised how much I probably shared more with them. Of course, they're a little older now than they knew the story of kind of my growing up, my starting, but as we worked on that application and it's kind of like once you start it, you decide to fill out that application and go down the process, with Farm Bureau on this, you can't help but want to try to do it well, present yourself in a good way, and do a good job with it. And but our younger daughter Maggie was still home in high school then, but I know she learned a lot from that. She probably helped you, and I don't really type and get on the computer or much of a tech guy, so she helped make sure we was getting things. I literally wrote my answers with an ink pen, and she helped get it in the PDF format, I guess, so to speak. But could just tell she was getting a lot from that. She was really understanding, the start, the kind of where Dad came from a little bit, and maybe why he's so obsessed and focused on some of the things he is, and I'd like to say careful and deliberate in thought and actions there sometimes, but it's just I see it in my kids too. They've got that same that they haven't had the same necessarily childhood I did, but they all know what to get up and to go to work is, to take care of the little details. I kind of like old sayings and old phrases, but I've always liked that, if you take care of the nickels and the dimes, the dollars will take care of themselves. So that's kind of the way we manage them, and they've learned to grow up. We run, a lot of cows. We fix to get, neck deep in calving season here, but we still fuss over the little things. Every calf that's born, we try to make those circles, see those pastures, make sure that calf, just got off to the right start. If something seems amiss, we kind of still obsess and fuss over those things. We don't leave anything chance or try not to. From the biggest, stoutest, prettiest thing we've got in the field to the most pitiful looking little calf you ever seen, it's going to get the same care as the best one does. So, and you don't leave anything. You take care of everything you're responsible for every day. and it's a little bit of a commitment. Sometimes you could say sacrifice something else. We're not big vacation takers. I owe my wife a good vacation, to be honest. Maybe a few of them. She's very patient there, But we did get away some when the kids were small, kind of get them to the beach, something like that, And great memories, great things there, and great experiences to have had. But with cattle, you got to be there. That's about all it really boils down to. So they've grown up that same way, and just I think are good at realizing to take care of the little things you're responsible for every day, and that's kind of how you avoid a lot of problems down the road too. Just to not leave much to chance. Be in charge and be in control of it, and care about it. Whether it's your work, your family, or your life and your relationship with God, for that matter. You got to care about it all and be involved in it all and put into it. You kind of get back what you put into things. So
absolutely. Scott, as more and more people are removed from the farm, you hear a whole lot, and there's a lot of misinformation about there. Whether you've got 9 head of cattle or you got 900 head. You're still out there checking on every one of them, aren't you? And sometimes people don't understand the care that goes into this, and certainly you can testify to that. How much you care for those animals.
It's just and like I said, it doesn't really matter whether it's a few or a lot. When you're producing something, kind of shepherding.
Exactly.
You care about like I said, you just those simple little things. You start out just making sure the basics are covered and everything is just fine, and all you really want to do, I could, last night we brought a heifer to the barn, had a little crippled calf, that back leg just kind of an abnormality to it, you kind of sit there and think, what's going to be the outcome, but at the bottom of it, that poor little calf needs help. So Asa was with me, and we were on the Honda. We'd run back there. I got off the track, jump on a Honda. He'd done seen the calf and come to get me to see what I thought about it. So it's like, needs to eat, can't stand up to nurse the mother. We're going to have to either milk her or get colostrum mixed up. And so number one, let's just get her to the calving shed, to the barn. She's actually fairly close to it. So we first put the calf on the back of the Honda, and she was actually a pretty gentle one, instead of one of the harder to handle ones, but couldn't get her to follow. So we run back and get a little feed trough and a rope and put the calf in a little feed trough and pull it, and it's down a better eyesight for her, so she follows it right to the barn. Spent an hour getting some colostrum from the cow down that calf, In my mind, it's not a dollars and cents thing at that point. That calf's never going to be super valuable, but it's alive. It's just hard to turn your back and walk away. We have those days, we know this one's hopeless, this one's suffering. We're gonna do something to face the reality of it,
Sure.
But a lot of times you can still, you spend that time to take care of something that's needs care, but there may not be necessarily a financial outcome for you for doing it, but yet it still makes sense to take care of that calf. And if it, it's amazing sometimes how fast a young calf can improve. It looked hopeless last night, but this morning that calf could stand up. We actually kind of held up nurse cow a little bit and then milked her some, got a little colostrum, tube down the esophageal feeder. This morning Samuel was back there checking. We was driving to Lou, and he said, "Dad, that calf can stand up." And we about knew a lot of times even a hurt leg calf can get around on 3 legs. He said, "But boy, that other back leg's terrible." And I said, "Yeah, it's pretty crippled, gimpy." We were calling him pretty gimpy already, but he wound up making sure. That's first thing he did was make sure it nursed again after he went through the heifers that were calving to make sure there wasn't any emergencies, and where he moved on to just kind of more of the routine work of the day, But so you just take a lot of that stuff one step at a time to, you still have a heart for what you do, even though you're doing it for a living, and you will market the animals at some point to, make your living and provide for your family, your needs and your wants. You still care about everything that goes on, and just do the best you can do with whatever the situation is.
Absolutely. And that message is so important. Renee knows that. To get that message out to the public, because so much of what we do is seen out there, and a lot of people don't understand. It's really important to get that message out there. I've seen a lot of grown men cry over a calf that they lost, and I mean, that's just that's part of it. Right. We've done the same thing with our animals, so it is an important message. And I'm glad you talked about it.
Yeah, it's just very much a reality of it. Yeah, but that's back to where you really do care about what you do, and it's not just making a living and getting ahead. It's no, you actually care about the animals you got in front of you, and it was weighing on Ace's mind, my youngest son, last night. He was talking to his mom about it when I guess, slipped off getting a shower and getting direction of trying to get to bed, and he was telling Mary Ann, like, just hope that little calf will hook up and go, basically, And so it was good news from Samuel this morning. It did have improvement, so to speak. So
good.
So stay after it.
Yeah. So shout out to my buddy Asa. So here's the fun part. So when we do these Farmer of the Year visits with the judges, there's 3 judges and a farmer. And so that's a pretty comfortable, all those can fit in one truck. So for the most part, like, I end up hanging out with the son or the farmhand, and I'll open a gate, or if they're trying to be too polite, they open the gates, But I'm riding in the second truck, so I always tell the judges when we get back, I go, y'all want to know the real story? Boy, do I know the real deets. But no, all jokes aside, I probably distracted Asa. I think he knocked a feeder on the truck against a gate because I was talking too much. I know everybody's shocked. But no, we had a good time. But he and I want to give you a chance to talk about that, not just because of Asa, but it made me think of it when you said his name. He's helped you with some of the videos. And so when we talk about diversifying within a commodity, which I love, and that was probably one of my favorite things. I've snagged you quite a bit since you started in this. So when we were talking to young farmers, we talk diversification. I think a lot of people think, oh, I got to add a commodity, and I don't know another commodity. I'm part-time. I don't have time to learn another commodity. Well, how do you diversify within the one you're already good at? You got a good animal sense. How do we diversify within cattle? You got a small cow-calf herd. Maybe we sell those more as feeders instead of, immediately weaned calves right off the cows. How do we find that next niche piece in that? And so when people talk about your scale of cow-calf operation, I don't think most people would think you have diversified past the point of like wean in, putting some weight on them, selling them as yearlings. But with you all doing your fall sale, I think that's a really cool thought process. And so if you don't care, explain that, because I think that is really diversifying and adding a whole nother kind of piece of what you do. Even at the scale you're at, you're still thinking of ways to diversify, and you're not just a cow-calf man. So I think that's really neat if you want to explain that one.
Right. And like I said, on that calf side of it, it's the real fault of that diversification came in feeding finishing cattle. And the idea of, even though I was just basically still feeding, finishing, marketing cattle, but you spread them out through the year. You didn't necessarily concentrate all your sales at one time of the year, because the one thing you can't really do well is always predict what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You think you ought to be selling something, but there's other times of the years it came in too. So as a guy buying and selling cattle, the diversification thought, it was really something I kind of learned through that feeding, finishing, sometimes you didn't sell on the highest market, but when you were really in the market, you bought back at the same time too. You maybe didn't get quite what you wanted out of something, but you also had an opportunity to buy back cheaper. So it didn't end there, the thought of it. Mm-hmm. And like as a cow-calf producer today, one thing I did is I kind of came back to the cows and calves. I've never solved the challenge or the issue of labor, how to hire and retain help, and because, I always say, especially for us, if we've got somebody that's kind of been pretty dependable, kind of wants to work, kind of comes, winter burns them out. Because wintertime on a cattle farm, it's tough. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's raining, snowing, or actually a pretty winter day. We spend all day in it, There's just no let up in it. Once you have to start delivering hay and just making sure they're fed and looked after, the cow herd primarily, but we also wean all the calves off in the fall from kind of the middle of November to the middle of December. We're getting the entire calf crop weaned off. And I largely keep the calves at home, so that adds to the winter feeding chores even that much more. But the time I wean those calves is not an ideal marketing time. And so I want to wean them, background them, add value to them like that. And holding on to them, I know if I've got them as a stock or grass type calf, spring will be coming before you know it. But it makes winter tough. So one way we try to kind of make winter a little more tolerable was we used to spring and fall calve both, but I stopped calving in the fall because without enough help, it was so hard to really do a good job looking after the cows and their calves going through winter feeding. Just from they require a little more work to keep them fed well and managed well, but so when you run short of time, it's a poor trade-off to neglect something, So my idea was I was just going to calve everything in the spring. I really don't start to calve until about the 1st of April because our winter feeding work's slowing down. The grass is coming, so to speak. And those cows are in a lot better shape the 1st of April than the 1st of February, the 1st of March start having calves too. The ground's in better shape for us to get on and just run back and forth checking. The days are longer. It's warm. It feels good to be outside instead of miserable. but the trade-off for that was if you're going to calve everything once a year, you cannot get everything bred back for us like a 90-day window to hit the 3 months I wanted to calve in. So you need to market it, So basically we just manage it in a simple idea of if they don't breed back as a spring calving cow, we're going to manage the bulls to go back to sell them as fall calving cows. That would basically have them starting to calve right now about the middle of September to the 1st of December, but we offer those cows for sale. And I've done that. I think this fall will be the 5th year in a row we've done that to where we market those cows, but it's turned into a great income stream in itself, just because I'm choosing not to calve those cows again. Somebody else is always looking for, the good fall calving cows. So we stick to the young cows. The older cows, if they're really older or getting faults to them, we kind of weigh them out, call them out. If we offer it as a cow that can go back to the farm and be a productive cow, that's what we want to sell, So that's the way it's kind of managed. And it's really, it's been a good experience. We've kept back largely heifers to replace the cows that kind of fall out to the fall calving side, but it's also another way to diversify and draw income from just the thought process of it fits a lot of boxes for us. It kind of reduces our winter stress a little bit. We try to keep all the cows. By the time the hay's fed, the calf crop's been weaned off, and I put the calf crop into fields and locations I can manage them pretty well to feed and to doctor if need be. Where they're first getting weaned off and try to make it very efficient in that regard to where literally the calf crop stays close to the feed beans. We'll have to supplemental feed them a little bit. If I head down the road a mile or less in the pickup truck instead of halfway across the county, we are a lot more efficient like that. We may have cows scattered out halfway across the county, but they're going to get delivered hay every other day, So we're just constantly trying to find the best way to manage our time and still diversify our income as much as possible through having more than one sale and more than just selling primarily one time of the year. Our calf crop will be kind of sold out that way. This past fall, a little bit more of the diversification side of it, we still had to manage labor-wise. So I did send 2 semi-loads of my weaned steers in early mid-December back into Kansas on a winter rye grazing deal that I hadn't done for a few years, but still knew the man out there well. That he actually checked in with me and told me he had good irrigated rye. He said, I think I can make you a good deal to feed some of your calves, and he only wants to turn steers out. So I did. When it just kind of hit at a good time. We were getting a little overwhelmed, Samuel and I, and trying to get everywhere and do everything. And Ace, of course, still in school, so he couldn't help too much. But I wound up putting part of them cattle back on winter rye, and they're still grazing. We've been selling the lighter weight cattle and been very happy with them, but letting those cattle on their rye pasture grow into probably 9 weights before we do something with them, and we'll more than likely resell them in a Kansas stockyards and market them through one of the sale barns out there. But it'll still working to hit that different ways to market cattle, so to speak, but spreading them out throughout the year to me is a great diversification. I always thought really when you're a stocker buyer, you diversify a lot there because you buy and sell cattle so much. Everything's not based on the one time a year you buy cattle, the one time a year you sell cattle. So there's opportunities you capitalize on and you were planning on. Then other things happen that you really didn't expect. But if you're in the market and you're into it, so to speak, you can certainly take advantage of them too. And it seemed like one of the best offsets, Renee, to having to sell cattle too cheap was buy some right back. To sell cheap, buy back cheap. So it just seemed like a great way to manage, even in a very simple seeming way to manage that risk. Well, yeah, maybe you had to sell some that just simply seemed too cheap, so to speak. You weren't happy with it, but turn right around, buy some back later, and add value to them, and just keep it turning. Keep the wheels a turning, because sometimes some of the better successes, and a great experience was maybe on cattle I bought that I wasn't that excited about, but things went better than I expected they would for whatever the reason was. And other times I was sure they were winners, but they might have been more like losers by the time it was all said and done. So it's just hard to know everything, even making good decisions. But staying in the game means a whole lot, just to stick with it. And it sounds a little bit silly, but yeah, sometimes when they're just too cheap, you had to sell some and move them, because those particular cattle at that point, they had to go somewhere. You can't keep them around forever, but step right back in and buy some more if the market's down. And you'll own them someday when it turns up. So
that winner-loser thing is the same in the horse business. I tell you what.
I'm sure I'm not quick enough for the horse business.
I've seen a few, and I thought, they're going to make something great, and it does not turn out that way. But it's I don't like to use the word gamble. But, there's always a chance that you take out there, whether you're, no matter the livestock you're raising or the grain that you're producing. You're always at the will of Mother Nature or the economy or something like that. And I think that's probably where advocacy comes in handy. I don't know if you count yourself as an advocate, but being supportive of the industry and talking about it and telling your story, you're really advocating out there for other folks. And Farm Bureau is pretty handy at that, don't you think?
Yes. Yeah, and that's the way. Farm Bureau hits that advocacy kind of lobbying boxes pretty well, and a lot of us probably don't. One thing I've thought about so many times, and I said it to the judges back in the summer when they were at the farm, and sitting there in the backyard under the shade tree, is I'm telling you all stuff and sharing stuff that beyond my wife and I and even our kids and what we talk to them about, nobody knows what we do and how we do it and why we do it the way we do it, and number one, we're just tied to our responsibilities every day, and don't get out too far, and don't share those stories very often from even the how my childhood and growing into farming was. It wasn't an easy path, so to speak, to what we've accomplished and kind of hurdles we've crossed, and I've always been obsessed with security. I kind of had an insecure childhood. I wanted to feel secure. Wanted to find that more than what I even thought, financial success was. Just the security. If I needed to pay for something, I could do it. It would be okay. And I don't know that farmers typically speak out and speak up that much and advocate for things they're excited about, concerned about, think they should share with other people. It's pretty much a get tough and figure it out yourself type of a person. A lot of full-time farmers are, I think, but there's definitely a place for that. Because that there is such a disconnect from production agriculture, especially, I think, and understanding, the way a farm works, the realities of it, the ups and the downs. It's sometimes we can have one conversation, maybe it sounds a little gloomy on the farm, but there's a lot of good things too, and a lot of good to share and life experiences and the life we live and the things that are important to us are they're definitely worth sharing, especially when you have people interested and want to know. And I've been kind of slow to warm up to it myself and maybe even believe it that people really want to know where their food comes from and who produces it. I'm probably behind in those thoughts. I didn't, but I feel like I do see that more and more, and even some of the people that have, saw were, was named as the winner of the award this year, and especially church is a good example, and say something to them, and just it's like they realize how much we do work and how much we do care and the good of it, and it's they're not necessarily farmers themselves, but it's like they have an appreciation for somebody producing what they're consuming, so to speak. And I've had some good comments, probably a little unexpected, some of them in that regard, just people that I probably thought had no interest or thought of ag, but appreciate a farm family trying to do a good job, so to speak. And it serves a lot of people well in that regard. So I appreciated those compliments.
Well, they all got to eat,
Exactly.
you know, and so sometimes you have to put it in simple terms. If you like to eat, then you better thank a farmer somewhere for that. So no matter where you are, no matter what your
Yes,
your
sir.
thing is on the farm.
Yes.
Well, we have kept you a long time, but and we
Oh,
can talk
man,
for hours.
I have 1,000 other questions.
Tim's got more. No, we cannot thank you enough, Scott. You guys do a phenomenal job over there, and I think hearing you, I tell people this all the time. It's one of my greatest joys about this podcast is sometimes you see the scale of a farm or you see the success of the farm because they won the award, they had the video, and I get the pleasure of getting to meet you all and hear your story. Or I get the pleasure of Matt Hilton talks about this all the time, and Tim talks about this. You've seen them do the Young Farm Family Award, and then where they've grown or the different trajectory they went, and I think that's what this podcast is giving people a chance to do is hear the story, hear your voice. You're just a normal guy who enjoyed cattle, had an interesting situation young, and then got to persevere and work through with one of the best partners of anybody I've ever seen with Miss Mary Ann. So I just can't thank you enough for being willing, whether you think you're an advocate or not, for being willing to apply, willing to share your story, because it does mean a lot.
Yeah, well, I do feel like at this point in life, I'm kind of proof that American dream's not dead. If you want to make something happen, you want to do it, just go work at it. Don't assume it's going to be easy, but don't think it's impossible either. Just get after it and do it. And number one, you know, serve God too and enjoy your life, and the rest of it comes pretty easy. So I'm blessed in a lot of ways, and I know it.
Amen to that. That's a great way to leave it, I think.
All right, we'll wrap this thing up. Thank you, Scott, and thank you, listeners. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and listen to some of our older episodes, and we'll see you next time on Let's Get Rural.